And it can happen to me too. Oh, I made one more little capture of this. Separate wire pairs coming out of a conduit and marked with colored tape at both ends of the wire, close to the end of the conduit. Like you have red tape, blue tape, white tape. Where you're going to connect them together, you'd have the same thing. And down where the receptacle box is, you would keep the pairs taped together down there with a different colored wire. We actually numbered ours on both ends. And I told them to make it easier to straighten it out. I gave them a roll of masking tape and a Sharpie and told them write it in 3/4 inch high numbers, all the wire numbers. Just fold the tape over the wire and put a number on both ends. Because when I have to check this thing after the electrician's done, I'm going to check it before we turn the power on. I don't want a bunch of wires melted off in the pipe. Oh, any white wires connect to the same as the colored wires, but do not cut the white wires shorter. That's in case I want to take one out here and make a 110 receptacle from the default 220. I need to run that wire up to here. It's above it. Always going to take more wire. All green wires go to the larger ground bar. This one's got bigger holes to put the thing in, and there's I don't know, 175, 176 receptacles scattered around the house. They all have to come to some place, but they all come to this ground bar eventually. Anyway, I'm gonna make 8.5 a living of this, and I can't work in the Philippines. I can't supervise people working in the Philippines. If I supervise workers working in the Philippines, they can arrest my wife. The property's in her name. And putting something in her name looks like I'm trying to skate the no foreigners working, no foreigners owning property, no foreigners this, that, and everything. So they just take her away. And then I don't speak the language. I have a hell of a time getting her back. And no telling what it would cost. Probably wouldn't be much because they deal in pesos and I deal in dollars, so it wouldn't be much of a fine to me. But it's, you know, she's almost 80 years old. She doesn't need to be in a jail cell. So I can't supervise them. But I believe we can have her tell them to take the wires off of whatever they've done in the panels, up on those breakers and everywhere else, and just take the wires and pull them out of the front of this place sunk into concrete. It's 5.5 inches deep by 1/2 meter by 1 meter. Just take them and let them hang down the wall. Empty the box of wires. And then the next electrician, he's just going to pick up a group with like 27 on it and put it over here someplace. And then go downstairs and put 27 on a receptacle at the other end and pick up the next one. There's 24 wires goes on this. I don't know how many wires I can put on in an hour now. But I think in an hour and a half, 24 is not that many to hook up. I mean, I got an ideal wire stripper and a screwdriver. Look out. My crew in the U.S., I never had to pull a wire in a pipe. I never had to mount a pipe on a building or under a concrete slab. I had some Cubans, actually one Cuban, and one guy that was just pretty smart. And they say, you're going to wire up that new air compressor back in the back? I says, yeah, I guess so. They say, what size pipe? And I say 2 inch. And they say, what size wire? I say number 4. And they say, how many conductors? And I say 5. They say, what color? I says, red, a black, a green, and a white, and a brown. Yeah, the red, black, and the brown, or a yellow in place of one of them. That's your 3-phase. And they tell me, it says time to terminate the conductors. I walk out there, the wires is hanging out on both ends. They're either individual colors or they're marked with wire numbers, ideal wire numbers. I think 7, 8 minutes to the end, and we're in business. Then they put the covers on. I don't have to do that either. So I didn't mind at all what they call terminating conductors. Easiest thing I did all day. But I'm not allowed to work here. So we have this figured for 155 man hours with halfway as competent an electrician with no helper. The wire's already in the pipe. I don't know what you'd use a helper for. You just spend your day trying to explain to him what you're doing. But he probably want a helper. But that guy won't cost 2,000 pesos a day. He'll be less. And these wires here, we put them in the pipe when we buried it. So these well, when we had a meter base before it walked off, these wires were hooked up in it. But when the electricians wired the thing, they put one of these and one of those up through the weatherhead, and that was it. But I don't have to worry about it because they cut them off so short that Meralco can't connect to them. They're not going to connect to a 3-inch piece of wire. I mean, it just puts their connectors right next to that concrete pole. So it's not a fire hazard leaving it like it is, because it won't never be used. And if we put the wind turbine on the roof, then and with no meter base, we could just disconnect the wires on the other end. Oh, here's something I wanted to show you. When you have multiple panels, like a panel and sub panel, 2 main panels, anything like that, 2 95 amp wires compared to a 180 amp single wire carries a little bit more electric, but what you get is wire that's easier to bend and pull through conduit and LBs and TBs and all those kinds of things. If you come out here and you put both of the wires onto this, then you've got to put 2 wires from there over to here. Oh golly, it's getting kind of busy right here. So what we did is we put one of each of them to each panel, like the blacks and the reds. I hope I drew that in. Son of a gun, I didn't draw it in. In actuality, the way the thing was wired up, there's a balance, load balance wire goes from this red screw over down to that red screw, and the black one up here over and to that black screw. That makes the total 2 wires of amps available to either or both entrance panels. And this way you only have 2 wires on the screw instead of 4. It's just a lot better all around. It's neat. You know, I like neat. I don't like what I got right now, but I do like neat. The white wire is jumped off the bottom down here through a separate pipe. And the green, when the electricians are here, they put a wire on that, about a number 12 or maybe it's an 8. And it goes down, and they had us drill a hole in the floor underneath of the panel box, which is no small feat. It's about 9 inches thick and has rebar everywhere. But we didn't hit a rebar the whole way through it. And anyway, we drove an 11-foot piece of, it looks like aluminum coated something. It might be copper. It's not a real hard metal, whatever it was, but we beat it into the ground. And when it got down pretty far, the ground got softer and it went right on in after that. But they grounded the green one. And I looked a while later, and they had run a wire from this to the other corner of the same room. They told me that at Meralco that I had to have 25 amps of resistance on my bond wire, one place to another. And that it would probably take, if I have real damp soil or something like that, it would probably take 2 ground rods, and they were showing like 12 feet spacing on them or something like that. That basically you stick your probe in the ground, and if you haven't got 25 ohms to the second one, then you move it farther apart until you do have it. So we had drilled a second hole. Well, we'd found the bit long enough to go through all that. We just drilled another one. So they had us go get another ground rod, and they drove that in the ground. And they connected the white wire to the ground. And then they used this for the other side of some 110. I'm gonna have to check the electrical code. Yeah, it doesn't seem right. I don't know how we were supposed to do that, but I'm pretty sure if you could have 110 by doing that, there'd be no house that an expat owns that wouldn't have split electric. Okay, that's another way too long video. Oh yes, this is way too long. Expect a part 1 and part 2. Y'all have a wonderful day. I hope I wasn't too repetitive. I think I pretty much covered it. Okay, now we're going to try to stop this. Okay, I was doing a video on the electrical distribution at Villa Cecelia, and I noticed an error an omission in the drawing of the load balancing for a sub panel or 2 mains where they're connected together. Up here at the top, there are 2 red wires. That's the left leg of the 220 from the transformer on the pole. And there's 2 blacks. That's the right leg of the 220. And in the middle is the neutral wire, if they'll hook it up. If not, that gets connected to a ground in the ground, or just left open if it's not doing anything. The reason for the 2 wires is they wouldn't come out and say it outright, but they're not going to hook up aluminum entrance cable. They want copper. They say recommended, and then they give you that look over the glasses, and after about 3 times you realize they're saying you're going to have copper or we're not going to hook it up. But they didn't come out and say that, but that's what it sounded like. So you can't get 00, what they call 2-watt copper in the Philippines. And I checked in the US, couldn't get it there either. And 200 amp service would be an aught size wire. It's about 1/2 inch in diameter. So what I got was number 2. And that's 95 amps to the leg. And 2 of them hooked to 175 amp breaker to meter bases. Everything's fine. But when I come into the house, I got 2 copper wires. And what I did was I sent 1 to each of the 2 panels, which are about 3 feet apart in the electrical room. It's no big deal for the wire run. So you got a wire coming in on the left. It goes to the left one. The wire that's to the right of it goes to the right panel, and then we connect the right to the left, and do the same thing on the other side with the blacks. They come in as 2 wires. Each goes to a main, and then a balance wire. That makes the entire 175 amps from the meter base available to each distribution center. Now, if one of them needed the whole 175 amps, it's got it. And if they're both running, then the load on the wires stays balanced out with this balance arrangement. I just call it load balance. Anyway, those 2 load balance wires were left off when we were talking about the distribution. So I'm going to tack this on the end of the video, which ought to make it really confusing. But that's where we stand. Everything else is the same. This goes down to a sub panel for each room. Got one other thing here I didn't mention. We have the conduit entered on the bottom on the right. There's 3 receptacles coming from there. They go to a terminal strip, and one goes to the top 2 terminals, one goes to the middle 2, and one goes to the bottom 2. And on the other side of that terminal strip, they go up to 3 breakers in the sub panel. There's a sub panel for every section of the house. It does the living floor and the fan deck. There's not really much electric in the fan deck. You know, it holds the roof up. Is what it's up there for. But you could call that rooms if you were desperate. But then it sounds like we've got a 28-room house, which we haven't got. Anyway, so from 3 outlets in a wall box downstairs, you're basically feeding it from 3 different breakers. So if one trips out, if it's a who knows what caused the trip, but if it's what you plugged into it, you can take the plug and stick it into one right beside it. Or if you have 2 blenders running, or a rice cooker or a blender, if you put one into each plug, they're really on separate breakers instead of being just one breaker. So that was, I don't think I made that clear, and I don't think this has helped. But three pairs of wires out of a pipe. They go to 3 different areas on the terminal strip, and that comes from 3 different breakers, so they all cross feed any way you want them to. More load balancing, I guess. You're just balancing that wall outlet receptacle box across 3 breakers instead of running it all off of one, which would probably be the norm. But we don't do things the normal way here. It would be too easy. Okay, if you've watched these videos, you probably realize that the video ran really long. So and the camera separated into not so long videos, but in pieces. And then I got this piece. I'm gonna stick it all together, and then you already know this, but I'll tell you what happened. I'm gonna run the slider across and try to find some kind of a break point at a third of the video, and I'm gonna chop it into 3 pieces and make it a part 1, part 2, and part 3. Electrical is it's an important part of your house. It's equally important to the water, except that the electric can kill you and the water just an inconvenience. Okay, so we're going to stick this together and then chop it all up and see what happens.